Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Wednesday chat. Will you give me a reading? I hope you're having a great week so far. I know it's a busy time. A lot of us are sliding into the holiday season. So whether you pop in, oh, hello, Jamie. Whether you pop in live or you listen later, welcome, come however you are. So before we get into it and I introduce my wonderful, beautiful guest, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening for the rest of this month. After next Wednesday, I will have Kate Fisher on, and we are going to talk about constructive versus destructive ways to use tarot. So I hope you show up for that. And then on the 30th, I'm going to have Chris Anareo on, and we're going to talk about self-care for tarot readers. And then that will be it for me officially until the next year. So you've only got a few more times for us to hang until the clock clicks over to 2023. But there's a lot that's going to be happening for that. So, hello. Hey, Susan. Hey, Christina. So, without further ado, I want to introduce Hilary Perry Haggerty. Welcome, my dear. Welcome. Thank you for coming and hanging out today.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on your show. And I feel like this is like a live stream swap. Just like you come on mine, I come on yours,
Mhm. And I see that you have a very special book kind of peeking over your shoulder. What pray tell might that little book be about, I wonder?
It is How to Read Tarot by
Oh.
this woman right here. I don't know. I think she's a big deal. I don't know. But yeah, that's my first tarot book. Yay. Yeah.
And that's that releases on the 22nd, right? Of
Correct.
so
11/22/22. Yep.
ooh, did you do the
Yeah.
tarot numerology on that yet?
I don't I've heard from people like, "Oh, that's so cool. That's great numbers. Like, did you plan that?" I'm just like, "Nope."
Ooh, I'm
Just a
gonna.
happy accident.
Okay, it's a 12, so it's the Hangman. So I listen, if it makes you feel better, my book was a 16, The
Hmm.
Tower. So
Oh boy.
I was like, "Oh, yay!" So the Hangman, like there could be like a bit of a sleeper element, especially as we're coming into Christmas, but
Yeah.
the head
Yeah.
is the head is lit, and people are going
Yes.
to come back to it over and over again. And this is by Flame Tree Publishing. Now,
Yes.
are they out of the UK? Is it
Yes,
this
they're a
publishing?
London-based tarot publisher. That is
Mhm.
correct. And they like have some beautiful books in their catalog.
Yeah.
I think my book is considered a part of the Gothic Dreams imprint,
Ooh.
so that's pretty cool. But like all of them are so beautifully designed, beautifully done. I provided the words, they provided the rest, and it's just gorgeous. I like made me cry when I got my author copies.
Oh,
So I'm just
I
like, oh,
know.
it's so pretty.
Yeah. Well, when I was looking at it too, I was like, this is a really pretty book that is so accessible. One of the things I was really impressed with was the breadth of topics you hit, but kept it light enough where people aren't like, holy crap, like I'm overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and they shut the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
So,
But
it appears to be light and breezy, but I know that it takes a certain level of artistry to make it look like that, to make it
yes.
accessible like that. So,
Yes.
big
Yeah. And
kudos.
I hope that really is the message where it's just like, and that was a part of the difficulty of writing it was, and I had to write it very quickly too.
Oh,
Um, it was I can't fit everything. I can't fit everything in here because it's just like this is the word count and this is how many pages it's going to be, and these are the chapters that we want you to write, and then other than that I was given free reign. But it's just like, tarot is such a big topic, and none of us can hope to include all of what tarot is in one singular book. So I had to kind of like deal with that myself and release that obligation that this is a tarot book, like the only tarot book that you will ever need. That's definitely not the case. And I'm very sure that I'm going to be writing more about tarot.
So I'm curious now, like how many words did you have to write, and how much time did they give you to do it?
2 months, less than 2 months. Yeah, this is contract writing, folks. It's very different. And I think it's 10,000 words in total, 128 pages. And, each chapter had a different word count for it. So it's just like the history. And then I used to sit down in my writing day and be like, okay, I have to hit this word count and I have to get 3 chapters done, or I have to get and so in that form it became, the playground. It's just like, I have the structure. Now I can play around with it. It's just like, do I feel like writing about the history of tarot today? Like, no. Do I feel like writing about the benefits? Like, yes. And then I started to borrow the word counts from some chapters based on my interest and my own personal beliefs. Like the history of tarot, you're never going to be able to cover the history of tarot. That was a very difficult chapter to write, because we still don't know, a lot of us, and a lot of misconceptions or half-truths in history then became these, like, the myths and truths that I know you were myth busting over on the Talk of Tick last week when your book was coming out. And those myths still persist because it just happened to be someone's opinion in history. So it's very hard to sort through the fact from the fiction. So I asked my publisher, hey, can I borrow the word count from here and put it into here where I think I've got more to say? And they were very generous with that. So, but because you don't need to know the history in order to use tarot and benefit from tarot, but it is nice to know some of the history, or at least what we do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It keeps you honest. Like I got this from a pyramid in Egypt, in which was kicking around for a while. So that was finally dispelled. But I mean, I want to talk a little bit about you as a reader. We can find you in your .com. What is your .com? What's your website? It's a
Tarot by Hilary.
Tarot by
with
Hilary.
1 L.
With 1 L. Yes. There it is. I have it. Yeah, I'll put it up.
Yes.
But that was launched in 2011. So you went pro like the year before I did. But you've been around a while, kicking around, reading that tarot situation for quite a while.
Yeah. 2005 was technically the year I started to charge money for reading. And I actually did it at an event that my friend who ran a gift store was doing. And I used to be a face painter, actually. And instead of face painting, I was just like, it was like the Halloween event. I was just like, why didn't I set up my table and do tarot readings instead? So that was like the moment that I started to really charge and really considered myself a professional. But Teresa Reed, the tarot lady, 2011, spring of 2011, I won her tarot apprentice contest, and she really been kicking my butt ever since, and really holding my feet to the fire and being like, oh, hey, you should be mentoring. Oh, hey, you should be teaching a class at Reader Studio. Oh, hey, you should be doing this. And actually, that's how this book came about. Was Teresa was approached. She was just like, I've got another book coming out at the same time as when you guys are planning to launch this, but let me see if Hilary's available. And so she sent them my way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've got 2 months to kill. Sure.
Oh, when they approached me, it was just like, they buried the lead on that one. They were just like, would you be interested? I'm like, yes. And it's just like, okay, we need it in 2 months. And I'm like, okay, still yes.
Wow. Well, I want to get into it because the book is so pretty, as Jones Davies said in the comments. I've had it. It's a very pretty book. it's just a pretty book to have like on your coffee table. Like, actually, I'm glad you showed the book because I was like, I didn't know what the dimensions were because I have a PDF version. So
Yes.
yeah, that's really nice and big. You can
It's
really
nice and
open it.
big, yeah, and you can open it up and you can keep it kind of quasi flat actually. The
That's
spine's
helpful.
very that's the spine is not a spiral bound, but it's nice, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah.
It's a nice kind of textbooky size so that you
Mhm.
can open it and work along with it in a way that I think is so helpful. I love books of that size. Oh yeah, and Jamie says it's
Jamie.
hardcover. Yeah.
Jamie says it's hardcover. We were actually recording one of the episodes of our podcast together
Oh.
earlier today, and I was just mentioning that my mom saw my author copies, and she just can't get over the fact that it's hardcover. And I'm just like, well, I knew it was going to be hardcover. I just didn't know that the dimensions would be quite so big. But I
Mhm.
knew it was going to be hardcover, but she
Mhm.
just can't get over it.
That's yeah, I'm like that. I love it too. I love it too. So let me I kind of went through it. I read through pieces of it. I can't say I went cover to cover in like the couple weeks I've had with my own book, but I've gotten a
Mhm.
good gist and reading of the situation.
Sure.
So I feel like I just want to kind of like talk about the topics that the book covers. Like
Sure.
you go to card meanings, the explanation of different families of decks, which I think is so helpful. Breakdown of the deck, a rundown of the Fool's Journey, elements associated with suits and correspondences of the numbers of the pips, the history that we talked about, and a bunch of positional 3-card spreads. So super helpful for beginners. The Celtic Cross, of course. Tips on choosing your deck. Tips on creating sacred reading space. And that was really one of the most thorough sections. I really liked that you kind of leaned into that. That was a nice addition. And then,
Yeah.
of course, key words. So, really, really great kind of scattering of a comprehensive way of approaching it if you're new. It's just really well done.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, I have a couple questions. Like,
Yeah.
one of the things on page 36, there's a reason for every card,
Yes.
and that's the heading there. So I did kind of just want to like play around with that idea with you. How do you see the differences, between cards that have similar or overlapping meanings?
Yeah, yeah. So I this is like a lot of the things that I put into the book is also like the way that I teach tarot to other people, to my students, to like when I teach my signature course online. It's compare and contrast the cards.
Mm.
Like you can either take all the fives, and that includes the Hierophant, number five. You can include the major or not, but like take all of the fives of the different suits. Wands, 5 of wands, 5 of swords, 5 of cups, 5 of pentacles, and compare and contrast them and see what the similarities are and what the differences are. And
Mhm.
this is something that I actually taught in one of my live streams because people asked me, like, what's the difference between the fives and the sevens of the tarot? That was
Mhm.
something that they were just like, they're so similar. I don't know what the difference is. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, okay, well, if there wasn't an actual difference, there wouldn't be both fives and sevens.
Mhm.
There's meaning in every single card. Otherwise, those cards would not exist.
Yeah.
um which is what I tried to say. And even when you take cards, this is going to be a mind blower for some of the newer readers. Even when you take cards out of a deck, the message will still come through, which is
Yes.
nuts. It's just like even if you take out the tower or the death card or the devil card, that message of perhaps chaos or shifting or the taboo or something's not good for you, that message will still come through the cards that remain. So it's a very much like, it can be a contradiction in terms, but there still is a reason for every single card. I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question.
I think you answered it and then you added another piece that's really that I want to speak to, which is true. If you pull, tarot finds a way of giving you the information with whatever
Mhm.
you leave it to work with.
Yep.
And that's how I teach, where it's like, we're going to start doing readings with just the minor arcana or just the one suit of the minor arcana, and it'll still work.
Mhm.
And then we
Yeah.
build capacity. And, when, I've done events and stuff, they're like, well, I've had this request. Will you take the death card out? And I can understand that. I've waffled back and forth on my feelings of that. Sometimes I'm like, never. But then I'm
Mhm.
like, well, okay, because I know the tarot is still going to say what it needs to say. It'll just be like, it'll say it in a different way. And
Yeah.
and I think like every card adds nuance. But it's also kind of loosey goosey too, because it'll figure out how to get the message across,
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think with that, you can kind of relax, because everyone's like, when you're first starting out, right? You're like, oh my God, like, what does it mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to mess this up. And it's like, it's kind of hard to mess up. Don't you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, there's definitely ways to mess up, and also that's another thing that I try to teach. Just like, you will mess up, and don't shy away from making mistakes, because otherwise, then you're just never going to learn. And I think we want to skip over that. I don't know if it's society, but it's just like we want to skip over that beginner stage as quickly as possible, and it's just like, but that's where all the good stuff is,
Mm.
like that's like,
Mhm.
and like, why are we so hesitant to talk about beginner's mindset? Because it's so important. Like,
Mhm.
no, not a lot of people get it right out of the gate. I mean, there is natural talent, of course, but most of the time, like, you are going to make mistakes in the pursuit of learning something.
Oh, absolutely. And if you have a like, this has to be perfect or accurate mindset, it actually gets in the way, because
Yeah.
it's like this, like you're trying to learn to ride a bike, right? So when you're riding a bike, you're not trying to ride the bike the most perfect way that a bike can be ridden. You're
Right. You're
trying to
just
ride
trying
it
to,
enough not to
yeah.
fall off, you know? And your body needs time to get the muscle memory going of the action. And I think tarot is very similar in that. Like, don't think
Yes.
about like reading tarot in the most perfect way. Think
Yeah.
about it as, just don't read it in a horrific, like if you are moderately like engaged, you're gonna be fine. And that's where
Yeah.
we start. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's also a similarity between your book and my book as well.
mm,
It's just like, tarot wants to be read.
yeah.
There's only so many books you can consume, whether or not it's like Jenna's book or my book. Like, there's only so many books you can consume before you have to actually, unwrap your tarot deck and start using it. Like, that's where the lessons really start to come. Jones Davy makes a good point. There's a typo on page 22. Jones Davy also follows my live stream, so they witnessed me find it live, and I'm just like,
Oh,
no. But I think that is a great example of beginner's mind and make mistakes.
yeah.
It's a collector's
Well,
item now, right?
my typo's on the cover, so that's fun. And I was just like,
Yes.
wow, okay. Yeah. All right. Um, so yeah, it does make it so it's like whatever, we work so hard, and only those who've written books can really understand what it means to write a book truly.
Yeah.
And I find that authors are outrageously kind and generous to one another, because we know like what it entails.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so
Jonathan also makes a good point there
yeah.
about teaching a beginner's class. Like, you are going to learn so much when
Mm,
you teach it, because then you're kind
mhm.
of like going backwards, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, sometimes some of the beginner questions that I get asked is like so invaluable. It's just like, okay, so like, if you're reading with reversals, like, when you're shuffling, like, which way do you pull from the top? Do you pull from the top of the deck, and then how do you do this? Do you do this, or do you do from side? And I'm just like, like, and I'm like having to like find the muscle memory to be able to answer those kind of questions. So I think that's really invaluable too.
My answer is yes to all of it.
Yes.
However you want to do it. Let's not get too in the weeds. Just like, trust me,
Yes.
it'll work. It'll work. So I wanted to also talk about, you talk about tarot in real life, like on
Mm.
page 44, and I've made this recommendation as well. I don't think I have it in my book, but in courses I have
Yeah.
that, that you make that tarot in real life where you search out the imagery of the tarot cards as you go about your day.
Yep.
A deck is not necessary because the entire world is your tarot deck. And so, like, I wanted to kind of get some clarity from you on your approach with this, which was,
Sure.
do you do readings from what you see throughout your day, or do you use it as a prompt to reflect on the meaning of the card you're noticing?
Both. Like, yes, I will
Ooh.
put the yes back.
Oh.
But like the way
Yeah.
I stumbled upon that particular technique was I was on vacation down in the House of Mouse. And I didn't have my tarot deck with me, and I was just like I didn't pack it for whatever reason. I think I
What?
probably didn't pack it intentionally so that I wouldn't like
Oh.
be going and trying to like work or pull a card of the
Mm.
day or anything like that. But I ended up doing it
Brave choice. Brave
just as
choice.
is. Yeah. But like for some reason, the that golf ball structure in Epcot reminded me of like the world card. And so I started thinking about like what is the about this particular photo that I took that reminds me of the world card. And then I did the interpretation that way. Another trip, same kind of trip, but years later I saw the magician's hat at, I think it's now MGM Studios. I can't remember. And I said it, and I thought of the magician card, and that was actually the day that my now husband proposed to me. About an
Aw.
hour later. So, and
Aw.
I showed him like on the bus when we were going to a separate section, and he just smiled at me, and yeah. So that's what I mean when I mean tarot in real life, or looking
Mhm.
for the imagery or the archetypes in the tarot
Mhm.
as you go about your day. You
Yeah.
can interpret
Yeah.
it, and then you can also use it as a learning tool with whatever one fits you.
Totally. It's like you are building your own, like you're using the tarot symbols to create that personal psychic lexicon
Yeah.
that will show up and key you, whether you have tools or no tools. And that
Hmm.
actually brings me to another question that kind of dovetails actually perfectly. And this will be the last question we do here. Then we're going to head over to Instagram. So for the
Cool.
Instagram folks, if you guys want to hang out over there, we will go chill there. Um, yeah, so tools versus no tools psychic. Like you did mention that, right? So
Hmm.
um you tell a little story, a little sharing about doing an intuitive development course and then being like, I do use a tool. And like
Yes.
maybe there's like this
Yes.
hierarchy vibe that happens.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like I thought it was a crutch, honestly. And I think I phrased it that way. I'm not gonna go and grab the book, but
Mm.
I do remember that moment. Like it's like a muscle memory to me where I'm like sitting in that class going like, because we were doing all
Mm.
sorts of different exercises, like I don't know if it was necessarily like remote viewing, but like someone was drawing something and then we were across the room and we were trying to intuit what that person was drawing, or they brought in a photograph and put it in an envelope or a manila envelope, and then we had to hold it
Mhm.
and guess it. So the little bit
Mhm.
of remote, a little bit of psychometry,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. And I was really bad at it. Really, really bad at it. So I was just like, I was feeling a little rattled in the moment that I asked that.
Oh.
I also am very bad at the Rhine cards, the ones where it's like
Oh,
wavy lines or
yeah, yeah,
stars
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I found out like if you're a statistical anomaly that like continues to get it wrong, like that is also a sign that you're
Uh-huh.
psychic. I'm like, okay, interesting. So there's different ways of intuiting, right? But I raised my hand. I was just like I suck at this. Maybe I should get a refund. Maybe I'm not doing
Oh,
it right. But I definitely put the
yeah.
blame on myself. And I asked. I'm just like, well, I use the tarot and it works for me just fine, and that's how I connect. And my teacher at the time said, then it's like that's not a crutch. That's a tool. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I would say that same thing. And I mean, like even now when I don't use my cards and I do get
Mhm.
information, sometimes I'll get it in a different way, or sometimes I will use the tarot deck in my mind,
Mhm,
and have like
mhm,
the Ace of Swords come up, and it's just like something like clearer communication is needed, or,
mhm.
Three of Cups, like, hey, Hilary, don't drink too much. You're like, I know you're having a good time, but sometimes the Three of Cups will come up to me and be like,
Yeah.
you're moderation, that kind of
No,
thing. So,
I'm gonna say something provocative, as I do, because 'cause I'm pretty feisty, and I have seen people marketing themselves as no tools psychics,
mhm,
and they are implying that there is a hierarchy, that no tools implies they're better, when in reality, many of them have never bothered to learn a tool. And that
mm,
it takes, as someone who was psychic before a becoming a tarot reader, it
mhm,
was a lot of work to get my natural talent to actually use tarot.
yeah,
And the analogy I use for that is like, say you're like a wild artist, like you do art, you're so good at it, and you go to art school, and like they're like, you have to learn to do it this way. And
yeah,
that doesn't mean then that, you know what I mean? It's like
mhm,
adding a tool is a bonus. And also, um, tarot keeps you honest,
yeah,
because then you can really see how much of it is the message and not maybe just your opinion or
yes,
your bias,
yes.
which is less obvious if you don't have that very obvious thing on the table.
I totally agree with you. It's like being able to show your work. Like, you may have that intuition and you may be reading strictly with your intuition, but then the cards come up and the cards are confirming, and it's something to show your client and be
Right.
like, and here's the reason why I say that. And sometimes I will preface with like, I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't know where this information is coming from, but that, because in my experience, those off the wall, I don't need to
Oh, yeah.
understand it. If the
Yep.
client understands it, then I've delivered the message.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that, like, I think of like the Marvel universe, and how there are some heroes that have natural superpowers and
Mhm.
some heroes that their superpower is like through a tool. And
Yeah.
is the Marvel universe going, well, Doctor Strange, though, he has to use a
Mhm.
cloak. So I don't know about him. Like, who
Or
cares?
DC, Batman, like, how dare you about Batman? Batman has all the he has the tool belt. Like, no one can say that Batman is not a superhero just
How
because he
dare
has
you?
all these, like, how dare you?
The audacity. How Yeah, it's just such a silly argument when we deconstruct it. Like, and the more of us that are out here doing this important work from a
Mhm.
place, like, I'm less concerned about what you use. I'm concerned about your ethics, your values, and like that you're coming from a place of service. So
Yeah.
that is, I think, where I want to keep the conversation that's relevant.
Mhm.
Um, but we are at time. We're going to move over to Instagram. And so, can you once again tell us, where can people find you? Where can people get the book? Do you have anything else going on? Lay it on us, mama.
I mean, having a book, I think, is like enough. But if you want more from me,
Right.
I do live streams every Friday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube and my Facebook channel. And you can find me at tarotbyhilary.com, www.tarotbyhilary.com. And to find out more about my book, just /book on the end. And that's where all of my stuff is. Yeah.
I'm putting it in the comments. And Jones Davy
Yep.
says, great synopsis. How to read tarot is a non-scary, non-occult. It's perfect for nervous tarot curious people.
Oh, thank you so
Oh,
much.
that's a wonderful, quick
Thank
little
you.
synopsis.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you said writing a book is enough, like I don't know, but like astrally, I felt Teresa Reed like lean in and look at us. I
Just like,
was like,
what?
she
Yeah,
made
she's on like her ninth her
She's
ninth
like,
book.
when's your next book coming out,
Once you're
though?
right, right. It's just like, can I take a moment to breathe and enjoy it? And it's just like, yes, and then get back to work.
I know. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in here at YouTube. We'll be heading over to Instagram for those of you live. And once again, next week, I will be here with Kate Fisher. We're going to talk about destructive versus constructive ways to use tarot. You certainly want to tune in. Have a good one, guys, and see you later. Bye.
Bye.